Welcome to World Briefing Weekend. Well, I gotta say, today is one of those days that either we will remember it for the flash that it might have been and then forget about it, or it's one of those days we're gonna remember for the rest of our lives because of the way it could alter the course of history. I suspect it's going to be the latter. Of course, following the news that the U.S. struck several suspected sites where Iranian clerics are hiding nuclear material, the post-battle assessments are still underway, but early indications are that you cannot just destroy their nuclear program with a few bunker-busting bombs that the U.S. used. It's going to take a lot more than that. And as a very seasoned observer of the Middle East said, the clerics would have a long time ago moved the uranium and other crucial materials that could be used to build a nuclear bomb a long time ago. Now, what Faz Gerges of the London School of Economics, who I have immense respect for, he's been at this for a long time, longer than a lot of others, said is that it's basically mission impossible to do regime change in Iran. The head Ayatollah has already distributed power to their version of the National Security Council. The regime is deeply entrenched, and if that's what the U.S. End goal is, well, he said again, mission impossible. I'm also going to play you a clip that he said is very interesting, that this will motivate the regime in Iran to actually go ahead and build a bomb after all. I'm going to play you the clip because he says it better than anyone else here on BBC News.
What I think is that the Iranian regime has already moved its basically grade weapons uranium out of the Isfahan laboratories. Iranian officials have made it very clear that the weapon grades uraniums are no longer really in the major nuclear laboratories. And secondly, I think regardless of what happened, if the Iranian regime survives, and my take on it, it's most likely to survive, I think Iran will make a dash, a secretive dash, to build a nuclear deterrent, a credible deterrent. So historians, I think, again, I could be wrong, will look at this particular moment and say that Iran, basically, this moment really motivated Iranian leaders to build a nuclear weapon, because in their eyes, in the eyes of Iranian leaders, a credible, effective deterrence is a nuclear deterrence. Because despite everything they have done, they have failed to deter the Israelis and Americans from attacking Iran and Iranian sovereignty. So this is a very dangerous moment.
There are a number of angles to this story, but let me start with what's close to here in Ukraine, is that the Iranian foreign minister, has said that he's on his way to Moscow to meet with Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister, but it looks like he's actually going to meet with Putin. Russia being an ally of Iran, they actually had hundreds of specialists on the ground there helping the country to develop its nuclear program. The two have a strategic partnership, and as I said on Times Radio, that interesting is it not that Russia has not been able to come to the aid of a prime ally. One ally, of course, that has been supplying thousands and thousands of drones to Russia, the very ones that come over these skies almost on a nightly basis and elsewhere in Ukraine to kill and destroy. The Iranians are believed to have provided Russia with the technology to build these drones themselves, which is why we're seeing a lot of destruction here. But let's see what happens to this partnership, to these discussions in Moscow today. Now, you've probably heard the term, the quicksand of the Middle East. Well, Mr. Trump, who campaigned on Make America Great Again, let's extract America from these never-ending conflicts, including here in Ukraine. Let's focus on the so-called war at home, the invasion of migrants into the U.S. This also poses the risk of fracturing his base. Yes, probably strong support for the time being for him to make a quick strike and make America safer or the world safer. Let's see where this goes, but this is why it's called the quicksand of the Middle East, is that once you get involved, it's very difficult to get yourself out. I've also noticed that the Mr. Hegseth, the defense secretary, when asked, it was a very interesting question actually, whether there's a fear that Iran's allies, for example, North Korea or China, may get pulled into this conflict. He said, well, that's the fault of the Biden administration that they didn't take care of North Korea when they had a chance. So there's also going to be finger pointing. But Mr. Trump likes to say, not one war has started under my watch. Well, now he has one. So that's going to be a hard narrative to keep up. On the more daily kind of impact of what affects you and me, watch out for a couple of things. Whether Iran will try and choke off the Straits of Hormuz, that narrow mouth, I believe it's 30 kilometers, the Red Sea, where is it a third or a quarter of the world's oil leaves and goes to world markets and a lot of other crucial goods, whether they'll go ahead and try and punish the West and the United States by choking that off. Even if they don't, watch tomorrow, Monday, when oil trading starts, what's going to happen to the price of oil. So that could be a liability for Mr. Trump as well. If the price of the pump starts to go up, I'm told their reserves are full, they're drilling more than ever before. But the other thing that's impacting normal folks is air travel. A lot of airlines were already taking very big detours around trouble spots in the Middle East. Many do not fly through Russian airspace. Already, Singapore Airlines and British Airlines have canceled flights to Dubai. There's a lot of disruption, a lot of cancellations, a lot of delays. You know, you can ask the Singaporeans what it's like to have a nice home in a troublesome neighborhood. That reminds me of where the UAE and even Qatar are right now. They have global airlines based there. Dubai is, if I'm not mistaken, the world's busiest airport now, or busiest international airport. A lot of cancellations there. I suspect it's only going to get worse. And of course, Israeli airspace closed for the longest period it's ever been. A lot of disruption up there in the air. A couple more things here. Some so-called analysts, including some I personally know, have been saying, oh, good, President Trump struck because Iran was days away from producing a nuclear weapon. It's kind of reminiscent of, everyone remember the term WMD in 2003, weapons of mass destruction? That's what then President Bush used as justification to invade Iraq, later proven that Saddam Hussein didn't have any, and the rest is history. So let's be careful about how big of a threat this was. Of course, this is a very, very hated regime that has said death to Israel, death to America. But the other thing we're starting to see in the coverage today is that, as we've seen in other conflicts, is that these types of attacks can have the kind of unintended effect of galvanizing the population and making them anti-American. And it also puts in risk thousands of U.S. and allied servicemen and women in the Middle East. So a lot of concern about the escalation there and what the Iranian retaliation might be. Finally, I'll circle back to what's happening here in Ukraine, is that there's a legitimate fear that, as I told Times Radio, Mr. Putin will take advantage of this escalation. He'll treat it as a distraction for the world, and he will even intensify his nightly bombing of Ukrainian cities, villages, critical infrastructure. It's expected that the Russians will intensify their summer offensive. The front line could move as much as 60 kilometers. That could displace up to 250,000 people. Those people would come into places like Odessa, but they'll keep on going, I'm sure, to seek safe haven in Europe. In fact, I'm hearing over the past few days that the war is really taking its toll on even the strongest world people here in Ukraine, and many people are thinking of leaving. It doesn't mean permanently, but it's really, really starting to affect people here. I'm seeing it all over, actually. So lots to think about, and I'm going to post below the full interview with the London School of Economics analyst I just mentioned. It's really worth watching if you watch one interview today, and this was on BBC this morning. This one is really worth watching. Stay safe, everyone. Thanks for listening.